And let's talk about the different ways there are to get your goods into the Amazon distribution centers. If you're shipping a full container load, then you're actually able to ship it directly from the port into Amazon, doing something called a floor loaded container. In every other scenario, you'll be using a middleman facility like a warehouse or 3PL or your freight forwarders warehouses, or you'll be receiving the goods at your house, and there you'll prep them and send them into Amazon's distribution centers. Let's start by talking about labels. Now, each one of your individually sellable units will have an FN SKU barcode on them. So for example, on my Jungle Sticks, you can see it right here. Now on the Jungle Sticks packaging, it's just in this poly bag with one label on it. And on this label, I have my logo and my brand name, as well as the printed FN SKU barcode directly on this label. On packaging like a box, I do the same thing. I print this FN SKU barcode directly on the box. Now, you are able to apply the FN SKU label later. So for example, if you wanted to print your UPC barcode on the box, then you could put the FN SKU barcode on top of it. That being said, if you're only going to be selling on Amazon and you're not going to be sending in these units to some other marketplace or selling them on your own stores, I would recommend that you just print the FN SKU barcode directly on your packaging. That way you don't have to pay a 3PL or Amazon or have to put all those labels on yourself. So to recap, the FN SKU label or the FN SKU barcode goes directly on each sellable unit that goes into Amazon. And I recommend you print this directly on your packaging as opposed to put a label on each unit. Now let's talk about shipment ID labels. Each box and pallet that you ship into an Amazon fulfillment center must be properly identified with a shipment ID label. What this label does is it allows Amazon to identify what's expected within the shipment and that the inventory belongs to you. You want to get paid for this. These labels will be printed during the process of creating the shipments inside of Seller Central. In the next lesson, I'll screen share Seller Central with you and I'll show the process of creating these different labels. Each of these labels are unique, which is important to remember, unlike the FN SKU label, which is the same barcode for all of the units of that same product type. These shipment ID labels are going to be unique for each box or each case that you're sending in to Amazon. Don't place labels on the seams or the openings of the box because they'll get damaged typically when the box is opened. If you're shipping multiple case packs in a master carton, you're going to apply the shipment ID label on the master carton. You don't need to apply shipment ID labels to the case packs inside of a master carton or anywhere else inside of a master carton. If you're shipping SPD or small parcel delivery, a shipping label will also be needed for each case, meaning that each case will have two labels. One label is the shipment ID label, and this is how Amazon identifies this particular box. The other label is going to be the UPS label or the FedEx label or whatever else that those respected couriers use. If you're shipping units palletized, then the cases will only have that one shipment label on them since they don't also need one of those UPS or FedEx type labels. After you put that one label, the shipping ID label, onto your master carton, it gets put on top of a pallet. The pallet gets wrapped up in a saran wrap type plastic. And then on each four sides of this pallet, you put one pallet label. The shipping labels for SPD or LTL shipments will also be printed when creating these shipment plans inside of Seller Central, which I'll demonstrate to you in the next lesson. Let's talk a little bit more about the shipping labels. So we have the shipping ID labels, which we just spoke about, that helps Amazon identify each of these cartons and what's inside of them. And then the shipping labels will be used if you're not palletizing and you're sending SPD, which is typically UPS, okay? If you do ship SPD, like UPS, I recommend using Amazon's account to send UPS And again, these labels will be created inside of Seller Central. Amazon gets much better rates with UPS and the other couriers than what you're gonna be able to do. So you'll be able to save a lot of money by creating the shipping labels inside of Seller Central. So the two main ways to ship your cartons into Amazon are SPD, UPS, FedEx, any of those other couriers, as well as LTL, which is less than truckload, and these are typically palletized goods. Both of these can be purchased through Amazon, and I recommend that you purchase these through Amazon. So you're probably thinking, okay, how do I know whether to send SPD shipments or LTL shipments? As a rough rule of thumb, shipments that weigh more than 150 pounds are going to be cheaper to send LTL. Shipments weighing less than 150 pounds are typically cheaper to send SPD. Let me give you a few more tips, some of them that I've learned the hard way about SPD shipments. One, after you've created these shipments inside of Amazon Seller Central, you can schedule a pickup for the boxes at your house, wherever they are, or you could take them to the UPS store or the drop-off site. No single box can weigh over 50 pounds, and unfortunately, this is one of the ones that I learned the hard way. If there is a single sellable unit inside the box that does weigh over 50 pounds, there is an exception to this rule, but that's not going to happen too often. There is a 200 case maximum quantity, but again, this isn't really going to happen to you that often. If you do have more than 200 cases that still weigh less than 150 pounds, that's a little bit of a rare scenario, and you should probably think about repackaging those. LTL shipments, which again, if the shipment weighs over 150 pounds, are probably going to be best for you. So these are the larger truckload shipments. These are all your boxes that you put on top of a pallet, wrap some saran wrap around them, and put the shipment IDs on 4 different sides. Few tips around LTL shipments. The units on each pallet must belong to one shipment ID, okay? So you can't mix and match them. Just like with SPD shipments, no case on that pallet can weigh more than 50 pounds. Now, to be eligible for LTL, you must either have a dock or a forklift that is able to pick up this pallet with all these boxes on top of it. You must also be able to support a truck coming to your pickup address. These are typically 18-wheelers, so if you live down a road or in some situation where an 18-wheeler can't get down there, then you're not eligible to do so. And if you don't have either a forklift or a dock for them to back up to, you still can use their partnered LTL services, but you must request a liftgate service. In order to do so, your shipment's supposed to be under 12 pallets and it's supposed to be less than 20,000 pounds. Once all your goods are on these pallets, it's wrapped up, there's these pallet labels on each side, and you're eligible for pickup through LTL. You schedule the pickup date, and then the truck will come, you load it onto the truck, and of course they drive away and take it to Amazon's distribution centers. As far as palletizing your goods is concerned, I have a few tips for you there. You need to use typical 40-inch by 48-inch wooden pallets that you commonly see. And each individual pallet, you can't stack higher than 72 inches. So even if you have a lot of really light boxes, they can't be stacked higher than 72 inches. In addition, the total weight of the pallet must not exceed 1,500 pounds. Now, if you're creating these pallets at your house, you probably don't have a scale to make sure it's not over 1,500 pounds. But of course, what you can do is you can add up the weight of all the individual boxes on the pallet to determine what the total weight of that individual pallet is. If you read the fine print of Amazon, you'll see a number of other kind of rules and regulations around palletizing goods. But what it comes down to is use decent quality pallets, not ones that are super torn up and falling apart, and make sure your goods are neatly stacked, not higher than 72 inches. It doesn't weigh over 1,500 pounds. You have the plastic wrapped around all the goods, and then you have the shipment labels on the top and 3 sides around the pallet. If you're using a 3PL to palletize these goods for you, they're probably already familiar with these requirements that we're speaking about. So what you do is you create the shipment yourself in Seller Central, and then you email the labels and information to the 3PL. They'll take care of creating these pallets for you and scheduling the pickup. So now that you know all about the labeling and package requirements, in the next video, we'll go right into Seller Central and you can look over my shoulder as I set up a shipment. I'll see you in there.